So today with Stefan Freedman. Now, his journey from wannabe philosopher to releasing trauma through dance is a really interesting one. So if you could, basically, when you were a child, you wanted to be a clown, didn't you? And then, um, so you've had a multitude of ambitions and jobs and experiences. So if you could tell us a little bit about your
I'd love
journey.
to, Tina, and whoever's watching. Um, I did have a number of ambitions when I was a kid, and the more serious one that was towards the end of my school because I was doing some voluntary work with children and reading a lot about psychology. I thought, okay, I'd like to be a psychiatric social worker because I was interested in helping the community. I was interested in psychology, partly because I was so mixed up and I was just wanting to sort it all out in my head, reading a lot of philosophy. And so after school and before going to uni, I did voluntary social work. It was a really interesting scheme. I learned a lot in the scheme, but I also learned from my fellows from the professional social workers that they felt, as one person put it, they were putting little plasters on gaping wounds, and it was so frustrating because of the lack of resources, human resources and money. Um, and because it wasn't a systemic approach, it was a sort of little patchwork approach, like where the squeakiest wheel got the grease and it stopped squeaking for a bit. So I came out thinking this is
Mm,
not it's not going to be a satisfactory life path for me.
mm. Okay. And so then when you came away from being, well, because you thought you were actually going to get a job as a philosopher. What was the
Well,
job
this,
role?
this voluntary work was between school and uni, and I'd applied to do philosophy at uni. I was reading lots of philosophy, Jean-Paul Sartre, what is the meaning of life, of existence, who am I, and do I really
Mhm.
exist? And it seemed quite
Oh
cool and
yes,
very interesting.
Albert Camus.
Absolutely, yeah. Um, but it was all in my head. I wasn't really connected to my feelings or body, although my mind was very fired up by all these ideas. Um, and I went into a course that was like you could do a pick and mix, started doing philosophy, and it was so dry and so argumentative. Can we say, well, I won't go into it, but anyway, it was dry as a bone. And I took the option to do social anthropology, which I found much more interesting, studying other cultures, but also kind of dry because like they didn't talk about the humor or the music. It was more like the matrilineal system and the legal system and who can marry whom. Interesting, but not the whole picture. So that was uni.
No, because you actually had quite an unusual childhood, didn't you? You were born on a
Yeah, I
kibbutz, were
was.
you, or brought up on a
No, it
kibbutz?
was only for the first year of my life. I actually grew up in East London, and it was at the time of the experiment. It was a socialist experiment, and the idea was that we won't have this unhealthy nuclear family. The child is the child of the community. Well, what that meant in practice was that the little children were shoved into a room, looked after by someone who didn't necessarily like children because everyone was on a strict rota, and had very little parental contact. And what a surprise. Later on, they found that didn't really serve the children's emotional needs. But at the time, it seemed like a good idea. They meant well. My mother hated it. She hated that aspect of it. So after I was a year old, they came back to London, and I grew up in East London, innit? I was an East London boy, and I had
Right,
my East London
whereabouts?
accent in acne, so I didn't get bullied. You know, I
Hackney.
was still a bully magnet, but not as much as I would have been if I'd spoken proper. And yeah, so there it was, and I learned to climb trees and be a member of a little gang, and it helped me to join the human race.
Mm. So, how was your schooling then? Did you say you got bullied?
Well, it was not so much at school; it was in the local sort of out and about. For some reason or other, little Jewish kids got picked on. I got beaten up once, and they were all shouting, "You killed Christ!" And I said, I didn't, honestly, I don't know him," but because it didn't make any
My
sense at the
God.
time. My mother tried to explain it to me. Um, but that sort of
No.
stuff was going on. Mosley was around, and there was still a lot of it was just before the gold rush, and once a lot of people started coming from the West Indies, prejudice got more diffused. But prior to that, the Jews were the sort of the number one scapegoat, if you like, and I was just around in time to get bullied for that. But everything
Wow.
that challenges me or us, I believe it also has the opposite. Is like the grit in the oyster. And so much of what happened in my early life, including, I think, the want of parental connection, set me on a quest. It's like a quest to understand who am I, what am I for, and how can I make this place a bit better. So I don't regret any of it, because my journey's been so amazing and fulfilling, and it set me on that path.
Yeah. And just quickly, how did your connection with your parents go after your time in the kibbutz?
Um,
How
Well, I
was
was
the
only a
bonding?
year
So
old when I came back, and my mother was
yeah.
so pleased, and she was a very hands-on, lovely mum who used to play with me and sing with
Wow.
me. I'm sure she was a lot of the reason why I love music so much, was she loved to sing.
Mm.
My father he didn't really like children, but he was a nice man. He did his best to sort of hang out with us, take us to the countryside, as we called it, from East London to the countryside, to see what a tree looks like and a pond. And so he was a
Okay.
nice guy, but he didn't really understand children or know what to do with them.
No. And so where did your passion for dance, because you actually told me that you were very focused on
Mm,
your head in your
mm.
20s, and so movement wasn't a big part of your life like it is now.
No, well, really, I'd say more in my teens. In my late teens, I very much lived in my head. It was a slightly safer place for a very embarrassed young person than actually inhabiting my feelings. And in my 20s, I did start to get into dance, and I think it was partly the music. I've always loved music. I've loved music with a beat. Um, and especially when I first heard East European dance music, it hit some chords in me that seemed deeper and more mysterious and oh, exotic. And it drew me to learning world dances, or folk dances from around the world. And that who would have known that this sort of shy, clunky young person who was getting passionate about dance would later be teaching them, and then would be travelling around the world by invitation, doing that kind of stuff. I had no idea then.
Wow. That is amazing. And so when did you set up Dance Wise?
Yeah, well, Dance Wise is a very specific project, which is Dance for Trauma Release, and that's relatively new. But World Dance was the name of my company for it was really festivals, celebrations, and holidays. So it was anything from a half-day workshop to a week um, in different countries. And it grew in my early 30s. I started an evening class, and I was asked to do more than one, and then it was weekends. And soon it occurred to me it might be nice to arrange a dance holiday. And then people started inviting people who came on that dance holiday from other countries started saying, "Would you come to America?" Yep. Um, and it just kind of
Ah,
snowballed from there. It had a life of its own. And I think because I played,
wow. And now you travel all over the world, Brazil,
yeah, yeah,
Greece, Egypt,
yeah.
everywhere.
Egypt's the new one with which you've inspired, which is happening next year. I'm really excited about that. I played a number of instruments. I've got a sense of humour, and being shy, I think very interested to support and encourage people that are not natural dancers and don't find it easy. Kind of like breaking things down and finding the back door. If you can't get through the front door, then you can learn it through the back door, and keeping people
Mhm.
entertained while they're struggling so they don't notice. Um, and I think for various reasons. it
Wow. Oh, I think we got David Hoover now, but it's fine. I'll let it. Yeah. Well done. Um, Wow. That's amazing. And what your dance is really lovely is that it doesn't feel intimidating. The choreography is relatively simple, relatively, and you're all in a circle. The ones that I've been coming onto, which are really lovely because you feel connected with the people, and it's a bit of a laugh. But there's something better than just dancing on your own, but also something not quite as intimidating as salsa dancing, which you also do. Um, Mm. And again, I think when you look at our education system, there's not much focus on movements. So to be sort of encouraged to dance, apart from when it's just a gig where you're just, at the front row listening to some music, bouncing, is quite foreign to most of us Brits. Mhm. Mhm. Mm. Oh, yeah. And so how do people get in touch with you to want to know further about your retreats as well? What website? Great. Mhm, mhm. Brilliant. Oh, well, thank you so much for talking to us, horrendousradio.com. And we're going to carry on chatting for YouTube now. But thanks a lot, Stefan Freedman. Okay. Oh, well, yeah, that was great. Thank you. And you hosted an event in Ipswich recently. Can you tell us, the listeners, a little bit more about that? Because I found that really fascinating. What was the event celebrating? No, it was at the Quaker meeting place, and it was in the evening. Mhm. And can you tell me a bit more about the religion? Because what was the name again? The Baha'i people. Can you tell me a little bit more about? Mhm. Mm. And when does this new year begin? Because what I've been told recently that September actually stands for seven, like sept, in and October is that's eight, like octopus. Yes, November, yeah, and December, diesel. Yeah, and in actual fact, our calendars are all wrong. So it really, when I arrived and heard about this lovely way of being to try and connect all the religions, and that they were celebrating their New Year in the end of March, I thought, these guys have got something. Mhm. Oh, mm. Yes, mm, I know. It is, isn't it? And I think once you put a label on it, if you don't go under that label, you're not sure if you're invited, as you say. Like I didn't know what the event was about. When I did, I was like, oh God, am I okay to be here? um, because I don't belong. Yes, and luckily yeah, it was lovely. But that little part of you has that self doubt. Oh, I'm not part of these people. But as the guy who introduced it put beautifully, that it was all about connecting everybody, and I just thought, that's great, because you don't hear that very often. Yes. Yeah, and it's quite poignant, I think, how dance is actually there's so many forms of trauma release now, and I think dance just makes so much sense, because we often don't know how to vocalize what's going on inside us, and it comes out as anger or frustration. So often people go for a long walk and they'll come back, that's my kind of therapy, or writing. But in actual fact, moving and being with people is just, there's, you kind of feel like there's this energy, and you come away thinking something special happened there, but you always feel better. Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Mm, mm. Yeah, yes. And also, as I was saying to someone else last week, that our water holds a memory, and as our bodies are made up of 75%, 80% water, um, that's our body is holding these memories. And we're the only species that can relive the trauma that we've been through, even if it was 10, 15 years ago. We still experience in our heads as if it was there. Mhm. Yeah. Yes. No, you're right, actually. And of course, all animals are made up of water just like we are. So that would make that would make complete sense. Um, yeah, so I know. So just did was it that people started coming to you and sharing their problems after the dancing, or how did the two kind of connect up, going from dancing to Mm. Mhm. You do, yes. And form an identity, put yourself under an identity, because then that can help you get to know who you are. Whereas there's a great book called The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, and he just sort of said most of us don't actually know who we are. So he sort of said just write down the positive things that you can think about you, and the things that I suppose you could do a little bit of work. He wouldn't use the word negative. Um, and I think that's such a great place to start, because we're often defined by, oh, which school do you go to, oh, what uni did you go to, and oh, what job are you doing, and people often say, oh, I'm just this or I'm just that, and so they're diminishing who they are, and it's like, but you're the same as everybody. We're all incredible. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Or I'm certain. Sorry, you go. I was going to say certain jobs have a higher esteem and make us feel prouder and look up, well, up when you think, if we let go of everything and start getting to know ourselves, and try everything, the dancing, the singing, the movement, and then maybe we'll start to find our passions in amongst all these things. Yeah, yeah. No. Mm. Yeah. Exactly. It's so sad, isn't it? Yes, humans have this desire to fit in, but we're trying to fit in with a very sick world. So if we step out and start finding the people that we feel comfortable with, we find actually there's a lot of people out there that don't feel that they fit into this world. Probably the most people, actually. Mm. Yeah. Well, what a beautiful way to end. Um, well, thank you so much. And yes, so it's Dancewise. Your two websites are dancewise.org. Right. I know. Yeah, I'm very excited. That's October 2024, isn't it? Yes, very. I know. All right. Well, thank you so much. And yeah, we will speak to you again soon. Pleasure. All right. Thanks, Stefan Freedman.